Black Chronicles is your go-to destination for in-depth explorations of Black history, journals, breaking news. Subscribe now. The Gospel of Thomas is a non-canonical ancient text discovered in 1945 among a collection of documents known as the Nag Hammadi Library found in Egypt. Unlike the canonical Gospels found in the New Testament, such as Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the Gospel of Thomas is categorized as a sayings gospel because it primarily consists of sayings attributed to Jesus rather than narrative accounts of his life. The Gospel of Thomas contains 114 sayings, or logia, attributed to Jesus, and it emphasizes the importance of inner knowing, spiritual insight, and personal enlightenment. Many of the sayings focus on themes such as self-discovery, the nature of reality, the kingdom of God, and the importance of transcending the material world. One distinctive feature of the Gospel of Thomas is its emphasis on the concept of gnosis, or knowledge, as a means of achieving salvation. In this text, salvation is not attained through faith or adherence to religious doctrines, but through a deeper understanding of oneself and the universe. The Gospel of Thomas presents Jesus as a wisdom teacher who imparts esoteric knowledge to his disciples, encouraging them to seek enlightenment and liberation from the constraints of the material world. It offers a unique perspective on Jesus' teachings and has sparked considerable interest among scholars and spiritual seekers alike. While the Gospel of Thomas is not included in the canonical New Testament, it provides valuable insights into early Christian thought and offers an alternative perspective on the message of Jesus. Its discovery has contributed to ongoing discussions about the diversity of early Christian beliefs and the transmission of Jesus' teachings in the ancient world. Before we delve deeper into this teaching, please consider subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to know when we release a new video. That's the only way you can support us and help us grow our community. Thank you in advance. In 1945, Egyptian workers accidentally dug into a Paleo-Christian tomb. Inside, they found a large jar containing 13 manuscripts bound in leather, composed of 48 distinct works. Practically all of these works are Gnostic, meaning they teach salvation through mystical knowledge. One of these manuscripts contains the Gospel of Thomas. In Gnosticism, it is believed that people are souls and material bodies. It is only through true knowledge that they can ascend. According to this religion, Jesus is the Redeemer who came to communicate this knowledge and free mankind. He communicated this knowledge to certain disciples, including Thomas. In nearly all spiritual paths or traditions followed, what is discovered ultimately leads to the same ascension. If these teachings had been placed in the modern Bible, the message might have been clearer and more focused on the power held by each individual. The Gospel, according to Thomas, does not tell a story. It is a compilation of about 114 sayings attributed to Jesus. The opening words of the document are as follows. These are the secret sayings that the living Jesus spoke and that Didymus, Judas Thomas, wrote down. And he said, "Whoever finds the interpretation of these sayings will not experience death. Let the one who seeks not stop until they find. When they find, they will be troubled. When they are troubled, they will marvel and reign over all." The words themselves are not the secret. The secret lies in their interpretation. When you find the true answers, they will trouble you because they go against much of what you have been taught. And when the truth sets in, you will marvel and then know your power. You will know that you have supreme power over your life and everything it contains, and that you can truly experience paradise on earth. The Gospel of Thomas was eliminated from the Bible, and there are many explanations for this. Some religious leaders claim that if you read it and compare it to what you see in the New Testament, it is a very different book, presenting a wholly different Jesus. They argue that these particular teachings about Jesus align with certain philosophical principles that have only gained in popularity, but are not necessary to the work of the Bible. How many of you have heard of the Lost Gospel of Thomas? Some of you have heard of this text, a very powerful text. The Lost Gospel of Thomas is powerful because it is believed to contain the very words of Jesus as he taught those around him. How to use the power of human emotion in your life. And if indigenous peoples know it, and if ancient peoples know it, why don't we? What happened to our knowledge? That's a very good question, and the answer is this: in our Western tradition. And when I say Western, I assume we're from the Judeo-Christian tradition. There was a time when this realm and the language of emotion was part of our tradition. It was in our texts until the 4th century, in the year 325 AD. In 325 AD, something happened. Our texts were edited, and we lost huge amounts of information. Emperor Constantine, in the early Christian church, with the early Christian Bible, had to make decisions. What information should we include? What information should we exclude? What we know today is that at least 45 books were either completely removed or considerably altered in what we now call the Western biblical tradition. And when these alterations were made, we lost the information that tells us that everything is connected. We lost the information that indicates the language that speaks of this realm. We know that this information was lost because we find it again today in the manuscripts of the Dead Sea Scrolls, in the Nag Hammadi library, and in Coptic texts. This is how we know that this information was lost. When we find writings belonging to Jesus that are not recorded in our primary sources, but are consistent with those that are, we are inclined to believe that they do indeed come from him. Conversely, when the words seem somewhat inconsistent with other teachings, we are told that they were removed for reasons of validity rather than the fact that they are sacred truths, meant to be transmitted to all peoples, but were reserved for a few, highlights the belief that each person is filled with the same higher power as Jesus, rather than being an external force to be feared, which would have changed everything we know about life in all our history. It's not because we're all different that we're separate. We're all part of the same consciousness that simply takes different forms. Here are some words of Jesus from the Gospel, according to Thomas, and their possible interpretations. Verse number 3. And you will understand that you are the sons of the living Father, but if you do not know yourselves, you live in poverty, and you are that poverty. This teaching refers to the consequences of the belief that power is external to the individual. If you believe this power belongs to someone or something else, that thing will dominate your life. However, when we realize what we truly are, the unique consciousness that permeates everything, and that all power comes from within, we can live in an ascending and rich way. The kingdom is within you and outside of you. You literally manifest your external circumstances from within. If you do not know yourselves, you live in poverty, and you are that poverty. The belief that external events and people have control over a person's life prevents them from experiencing the richness that rightfully belongs to them. They manifest what they believe. Verse 27. If you do not fast from the world, you will not find the domain of the Father. If we do not turn away from the things that disturb us, and if we do not believe in the inner power to change everything, we will continue to experience this reality in our lives. Verse 50. If they ask you, where do you come from? Answer, we come from the light, from the place where the light was born of itself, established itself, and manifested itself through its image. If they ask you, is it you? Answer, we are these children. We are the chosen ones of the living Father. If they ask you, what is the sign of your Father in you? Answer, it is movement and rest. The word light is used to describe the origin of man. Light is the consciousness of each person that manifests as a physical being. It is the all-in-all that exists when each individual consciousness lives through us as activity and consciousness. Verse 77, Jesus says, I am the light that is above all. I am the all. It is from me that they all came out, and it is to me that they all extended. Split a piece of wood, and I am there. Lift the stone, and you will find me there. This explains that the unique consciousness lives within everything. What lives in it also lives in all other things. Verse 113, this disciple said to him, when will the kingdom come? Jesus answered, it will not come by waiting for it. It will not be about saying, here it is or there it is. Jesus answered, It is not by waiting for it to come. It is not by saying, here it is or there it is. On the contrary, the kingdom of the Father is spread out over the earth and men do not see it. We have always had the power within ourselves, but we have lost sight of it. It is not something we have to wait for to experience. This consciousness is already part of all things, including every person. To unleash the power of the divine matrix in our lives, we must first understand how it works, and science tells us how it works. Secondly, we must speak the language that the divine matrix recognizes, and science cannot tell us that. It comes from our past, our culture, our history, from those who have learned and used this language for thousands of years. So that's what we're doing right now. We are learning what Jesus and the great masters said about this language. Because it's the same thing, whether it's Buddhist, Hindu, or pre-Christian Christian traditions. They all tell us that there is a field of energy and that we have the language to use this field. This is a page from the Gospel of Thomas, so we know this ancient gospel actually existed, and you can see some of the letters. These are Greek letters. If you know Greek, you can read some of them in the Gospel of Thomas. Two very important keys. This gospel was written about 300 years after the time of Jesus. We've been in Tibetan Buddhist monasteries, and they tell us we have to feel it. Is prayer 1-2 that we have to feel as if our prayers had already been answered? We are now in an Egyptian monastery with the text that made up our before it was edited, and we will examine the instructions that tell us how to do this. If we do this, it's a good Gospel of Thomas. If you have a copy of the Gospel of Thomas, here is verse 106, translated from the Nag Hammadi library. And if you do not have a copy, it is in our books, and you can go to any library and get it. In verse 106, look at what the Lost Gospel of Thomas says. It says that when you make thought and emotion one and the same thing. So the Gospel of Thomas talks about thought and emotion. It says that when you make your thought and emotion one and the same thing, look what happens. You will say to the mountain, "Mountain, move away," and the mountain will move away. Which means that when you can marry your thought and emotion into one powerful force, that's when you have the power to speak to the world. When you make these two elements one, what is it talking about? What are the two? Let's go back to our image. The two, thought and emotion. When the two become one in our hearts, we create feelings in our bodies. When thought and emotion become one, you will see how to do it in a minute. Let's go back to the Gospel of Thomas. Another verse, it's verse 48. It says almost the same thing. It was so important that it was reported at least 3 times in the same gospel. Look at what this verse says. If the two make peace in this house, when Jesus talks about the house or the temple, what is he talking about? What is he talking about specifically? You are the house. You are the temple. If the two make peace in this house, if thought and emotion become one. If they make peace in this house, look what happens. They will say to the mountain, "Move away," and it will move away. Are they repeating to us in a completely different verse how powerful it is to marry thought and emotion? But they still haven't told us how to do it. This is the next element. In the Bible of the early Christians, your Bible today, there is a passage. How many of you have heard, "Ask and you shall receive"? Have you ever heard that? Ask and you will receive. You've heard it. I know people who have asked and asked and asked, and nothing happens because the request is not made with the voice. Please, bring this into my world. That's not asking. To ask, we must address the chant, the divine matrix, in a language that the chant recognizes and makes sense of. The chant does not recognize our voice. It recognizes the power of our heart. Remember this morning, our heart. We have a feeling that creates electrical waves, magnetic waves. That's the language the chant recognizes. So, when you create in your heart the feeling that your prayer has already been answered, it creates the electrical and magnetic waves that bring you that response. In the Bible you have today, the King James Version, John 6, her 23-24. You have the condensed version. You have the edited version. The edited version goes like this. Here's the edited version. All that you shall ask the Father in my name, he will give it to you. So far, you have asked nothing. Okay, ask and you will receive, so that your joy may be complete. Okay, that's the edited version. It's so amazing to me because they took out the two sentences that tell us how to ask. It's in the IV century, in the review, that these two sentences were removed. Do you want to see these two original sentences? Okay, we're going back to the original Aramaic and we're going to look at a new translation. Here's the original in Aramaic. It starts. It's very similar. So here's the retranslated version with the missing parts. All that you have asked directly in my name will be given to you. It is said, so far you have not done it, because if we ask with our voice, we have not done it. Here's the part that was edited. Here's what's been lost. Look at these two very powerful sentences. Ask without hidden motives and be surrounded by your response. Be enveloped by those whom you desire, so that your joy may be complete. Look at what it says. It doesn't say to utter a word. It says to be surrounded, to feel surrounded. You feel like your response has already arrived. Be enveloped. If you want the perfect relationship in your life, if you want healing in the bodies of your loved ones, feel what it's like as if it has already happened. Let yourself be enveloped by what you desire, because it's at that moment that your thought and emotion become one. You're thinking about the healing of your loved ones, and you're feeling the love of that thought. They become one, and that's the language that this chant recognizes. Does that make sense? Do you agree with that? You'll see an example of this, another example here in a moment. Ask without hidden motives. What does that mean, a hidden motive? Ask without judgment. This is precisely what the Buddhists tell us. Ask without judging good or bad, right or wrong. Ask without the ego. Ask with the heart. Does that make sense to you? Does it help you? Let me give you an example. Because to be, if it is said to be surrounded, it means to feel like, to feel like. If it sounds too religious to you because it's from the Bible, we talked this morning about Neville, the philosopher Neville, in the early 20th century, and his book, The Power of Awareness. Look at what he says. It's the same thing. Neville says, will be given to you. It is said, so far you have not done it, because if we ask with our voice, we have not done it. Here's the part that was edited. Here's what's been lost. Look at these two very powerful sentences. Ask without hidden motives and be surrounded by your response. Be enveloped by those whom you desire, so that your joy may be complete. Look at what it says. It doesn't say to utter a word. It says to be surrounded, to feel surrounded. You feel like your response has already arrived. Be enveloped. If you want the perfect relationship in your life, if you want healing in the bodies of your loved ones, feel what it's like as if it has already happened. Let yourself be enveloped by what you desire, because it's at that moment that your thought and emotion become one. You're thinking about the healing of your loved ones, and you're feeling the love of that thought. They become one, and that's the language that this chant recognizes. Does that make sense? Do you agree with that? You'll see an example of this, another example here in a moment. Ask without hidden motives. What does that mean? A hidden motive? Ask without judgment. This is precisely what the Buddhists tell us. Ask without judging good or bad, right or wrong. Ask without the ego. Ask with the heart. Does that make sense to you? Does it help you? Let me give you an example. Because to be, if it is said to be surrounded, it means to feel like, to feel like. If it sounds too religious to you because it's from the Bible, we talked this morning about Neville, the philosopher Neville, in the early 20th century, and his book, The Power of Awareness. Look at what he says. It's the same thing. Neville says, the Gospel of Thomas, with its teachings on inner knowing and spiritual empowerment, challenges conventional interpretations of religious texts and invites individuals to explore their own inner divinity. Its emphasis on direct experience and personal transformation resonates with spiritual seekers across different traditions. In a world where external forces often dictate our lives and limit our potential, the Gospel of Thomas reminds us that true power comes from within. By aligning our thoughts and emotions with our deepest desires, we can manifest positive change and create the life we truly want to live. This message of self-empowerment and spiritual liberation is as relevant today as it was in ancient times. As we delve deeper into the teachings of the Gospel of Thomas and other ancient texts, we uncover timeless wisdom that has the power to transform our lives. By embracing our inherent connection to the divine and accessing the limitless potential within us, we can transcend limitations and live authentically in alignment with our true purpose. In conclusion, the Gospel of Thomas offers a profound and transformative message of inner knowing, spiritual empowerment, and liberation. Its teachings inspire us to awaken to our true nature, harness our inner power, and create a life of meaning, purpose, and fulfillment. It invites us to embark on a journey of self-discovery and spiritual growth, leading us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe. Black Chronicles is your go-to destination for in-depth explorations of Black history, journals, breaking news, and insightful revelations. Our channel delves into the rich tapestry of Black heritage, highlighting untold stories, significant events, and influential figures that have shaped history. From ancient civilizations to modern-day movements, we uncover the hidden gems and shed light on overlooked narratives. Join us on a journey of discovery and empowerment as we celebrate the resilience, creativity, and contributions of the Black community worldwide. Subscribe now for engaging content that educates, inspires, and fosters a deeper understanding of Black culture and identity.